Welcome to the Recruitment Equation, the no-nonsense podcast where we get real about what it takes to succeed in talent acquisition. We're diving into the world of recruitment, the wins, the challenges, and everything in between. From innovative strategies to unfiltered conversations with industry leaders, we're here to give you the insights you need to elevate the way you attract and hire. This episode is supported by Beyond Talents and Develop Diverse, your partner for future-proof talent attraction. Let's get started. Wonderful. I'm so happy to welcome Alexander today. Welcome, Alexander.
Thank you.
We are going to shoot an episode here about recruitment marketing today.
Mm-hmm.
With me, I have my co-host, Nicklas, as well. And my name is Pyrdol. Welcome to this episode. I've been really looking forward to this one.
Me too.
So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
First of all, I know you and Nicklas know each other pretty well, so that's why I will be asking all the questions here today, and then we'll have a really good conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
But before we really jump into it, I think instead of me introducing you and talking about all your contributions and all you have achieved,
all my achievements,
all your great achievements, maybe you can do that yourself.
Yeah. Well, we only have half an hour, right? So
only half an hour.
the short version. Today I am Director of Marketing and Customer Service at an information technology company called Karnov Group. And before that, I worked in the commercial side of the recruitment space for approximately 10 years. First as a sales manager at a startup where I did recruitment on the side and onboarding on the side as a side hustle from the doing the sales managing. Then I co-founded a recruitment platform which pivoted into a recruitment agency that became the go-to agency for startups and scale-ups in Denmark. Unfortunately, COVID got the better of us, so I got a chance to go into a job board, Danish job board called U4, where we did a turnaround of that company and tripled the revenue over the span of 3 years. And then 6 months ago, I actually left the recruitment space as my full-time occupation, but I still do consulting. I'm a part of some advisory boards and still very keen follower of the industry. Also because I've always been like, my profession has always been marketing, but I see a lot of things that you do in marketing and in the commercial aspects that you can actually do in the talent attraction space. So therefore I'm still very keen about talking this today.
Cool. And Alexander, we have a lot of terminology in the space of talent attraction. So as Pyrdol just said, we're going to talk about recruitment marketing. Yeah. But can you maybe start explaining recruitment marketing versus employer branding and the difference between the two of those concepts?
I've actually argued about the definition with a lot of people before, and I've tried to fact check it on Google several times, but there seems to be no single point of truth to this. So let's just establish what I think about it, so that the listeners know when I'm talking about this. So, in my point of view, your employer brand is what candidates think about you and talk about you and tell about you when you're not in the room. So that's like your reputation. Recruitment marketing is all the things you can do to build or form or reshape your employer brand. So that's when I say recruitment marketing, it could be an activity like going to a career fair, or it could be running ads, or it could be running job ads, for instance. That's also an activity, and all the things you do, and all the communication you have, the positioning you have, the targeting you have, all the things you do are creating our recruitment marketing activities. But everything contributes into how you are perceived, how your brand is, your employer brand. So that's my definition.
Cool. And now, as we talked about, you have transitioned from being in the talent attraction space to now being in the commercial marketing space again, or solely. And you know, we have invited you because we want to, you know, really take that the theory, you know, some of the practical ways of doing stuff from commercial marketing, you know, getting customers to buy your product or buy your services, to maybe think more alike in the world of talent attraction. But what should we consider as the difference between having a customer journey and a customer funnel, and then having an employer brand and recruitment marketing where we want to get people to apply for a job?
Yeah. In my point of view, there's no difference. But of course, the journey from company to company, for job to job, is different. But that's also the way from company to company selling goods, selling different products. So there's always a unique journey where you want to pull people through some kind of a funnel. And at the end of that funnel, people either buy your product if it's a commercial funnel, or apply and get hired if it's a talent attraction funnel. So that's the short answer.
But is there a difference in that way? Because I think, especially if you work in the B2B space and the commercial side, there are actually customers you don't want.
Yeah.
And
there's also candidates you don't want.
So what candidates do you want? Maybe that's the next question, right?
Yeah, and you need to figure that out. Like in the commercial space, you talk about an ideal customer profile.
Exactly.
It's like what fits our company. And you can have all sorts of criteria. So it could be generic criteria for like how big is the company, what like main stakeholder should they have? Is there some sort of technology that they need to have in order for them to make sense to buy our product, etc. But it could be all sort of things, and you need to transition that over. So if we can go a bit practical, I guess if you're sitting and wondering like how can I get inspiration? I'm working in talent attraction. How can I get inspiration for how marketing work to attract clients, to actually attract candidates? Well, most talent attraction position will make some sort of job profile. Hopefully. They do.
The role is that the role description?
It's like
specifications.
Before,
right?
that's the thing coming before the job post. Or the job description. This is the one you do with the hiring manager, and that's sort of a persona description. That's like what do we want? What do we need? What is nice to have? What is need to have? And all those criteria is like the foundation for knowing how should we communicate, what should we communicate, where should we communicate it, so like what channels, what places is it feasible that this type of candidate is actually present. So when we want to get their attention, is it at job fairs, is it at LinkedIn, is it at Reddit, is it at I don't know, and that's like the targeting part. If you're doing it from a commercial perspective. Yeah.
So how good are the companies at doing this?
I mean,
in your experience?
Most talent attraction departments have like 2 tools in their recruitment marketing box, and one is like advertising on a job board. It could be LinkedIn's job board, it could be Job Index, it could be Ofir, it could be Indeed, it could be whatever. And then direct outreach, typically on LinkedIn. And that's like the 2 primary tools that most talent attraction departments are using. And those are fine tools. And if you are having a great hiring success rate and you're finding the right people, etc., well, don't fix it if it ain't broken. But unless it's because you are having like way too high hiring costs. So what I saw when I was working in the job board space was a lot of companies had trouble attracting the right talent through job ads. So they allocated more and more resources into talent attraction people, and then they got really heavy on the salary side on that, and the licensing side for LinkedIn Recruiter, etc. So it might be working, but it might be a really expensive setup where you can go back to saying, okay, could we do this smarter? Again, if I should make a perspective to the commercial world, you can have a company that is really sales heavy, so having maybe 100 salespeople. And this could work. This could be a great way for you to get clients. We see a lot of companies doing it, just phoning out, cold calling private or businesses, trying to sell it, and it could work, but it's also really expensive. So many of these companies are, of course, always looking in to see how can we crack like the marketing side of this, so we can attract people inbound instead of us doing outbound all the time. And most talent attraction department are struggling with the inbound part. So there is a lot to be gained if you can crack that. And job board is a really fine way to do it. Is something I always said when I was working at Ofir, and that that's still my position, even though I don't work there anymore, is that it's a really low-hanging fruit. And it's a really inexpensive way to attract, to post on a job board. But it's also very limiting in regards to who do you actually reach. Because when your advert is like locked or hidden in a job board with thousands of other jobs, it will only be found by some people. If you also activate some sort of what you call push advertisement, push marketing in other
what does
channels.
That mean?
Yeah, it basically means that instead of you relying on candidates coming to you because you're like, well, every candidate there's once a job is going to Job Index, it's like, no, they're not. Some people are undecided. Some people can be tempted. That's why we have recruiters. That's why we have agencies. But there are other ways to make people aware of your opportunities. Again, you have probably all in this room and all here listen to this podcast have bought things that they didn't go into a store to buy or into an online store to buy. They have seen an app for an advertisement for, now I'm just going to say something really trivial, like a pair of shoes or something, going into Zalando saying, oh, that was actually great. I wasn't actually proactively shopping for shoes, but I had thought about for a while that I needed new winter shoes, and here they are, they're on sale, I'm going to buy them. And you can do the same things with a job, basically. Yeah. So now, in respect of time, I'm just going to give it back to you and see if I should just continue down this ramble or if it should do.
But let's summarize
nothing.
real quick,
Yeah.
I think, because then we're going to go a slightly different way.
Yeah.
So if I am to summarize really quick here, and Nicklas, I think you should join in a moment as well to if there's anything I'm missing here, but to really view it as a commercial organization. When we talk about talent acquisition, how do we make sure we attract the most qualified candidates? Well, passive recruitment is not the only way and shouldn't be the only way.
Exactly.
How do we actually target them in the places that they are already? Whether that be Reddit, if we're looking for an engineer, if that be, I'm just saying something else in terms of channels, Instagram, other places.
Yeah.
Think about it as the marketing, as you would in terms of acquiring clients.
Yeah.
That can work better.
And if I can add a note to that, because what I've experienced is that a lot of talent attraction people don't really get excited about this part because it's not the attraction work itself that they thrive on. It's the person interaction. So actually like talking to people, screening them, having job interviews, etc. But so if I can offer another perspective that might sweeten the deal for doing more recruitment marketing is that it's also great from a diversity point of view. And most talent attraction people either want to work with diversity or are forced to work with diversity. But you can view it as if you're only fishing in one pond, you only get one type of people. So even though there of course are diversity in like gender and ethnicity and sexuality and whatever on job boards, etc., it's still a certain type of candidate mindset that goes into a job board. And there are people who never goes to a job board who have another mindset, and you might also need that mindset in your organization. And on the other hand, if you only do outreach, you will have a lot of bias in your outreach. whether you want it or not, because you are looking through thousands of profiles per week, and you have to make a split-second decision about should I contact this person or not, and that's based on bias.
We tend to like the people who look like ourselves, right?
Yeah. So that's just another perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I really like is that everyone out there, they can ask themselves, are there any channels that we are not using today that we could use? Are there any formats that we are not using today that we could use? So as you said, constantly being more creative and also more diverse and, rather doing more because then you know that you will be activating people from different talent pools, but also at different points of time in their decision-making process.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a pretty important point from a talent attraction perspective.
Yeah.
That is, and I hope we will get the chance to speak about that. That is, should it be laser focused? Only one channel, only with one key messaging, only for one persona, or is it actually better to do something more general and broad?
I can actually add something to that, because I totally agree with what you're saying, with the small nuance that it's important that you don't look at channel first, but that you look at target group first. So like back to like the job profile description, what is it actually we need to reach? Because that's also looking at the channel first is also a mistake that a lot of marketing departments are doing. It's like, wait, TikTok is blowing up. Everyone is talking about TikTok. Why are we not on TikTok? It's like, well, let's go back to who do we need to reach? They might be on TikTok, but let's look into that first, and let's look into if a large proportion enough of the target group is present in that channel for us to actually be able to put some resources into that, or is it better just to go laser focused on one channel because 80% of our target group is there? In an ideal world, we would still like to reach the 20% more, but we don't have the resources right now to do it, so we need to get success in one channel first before we spread our focus on 5 different ways to do it. So in an ideal world, you will build it up and you know exactly where to reach in the specific candidates in which channel, but you really need to start with the target group first.
When we do look at the target group first, I think now I've been running commercial departments, but I also work with diversity and inclusion, as many of you know. And I think sometimes what can be hard in that way of thinking when I do the commercial is, I can very much see the return on investment. Is it worth, you talked about the outreach, the calling out. Yeah. I can on the bottom, does it make sense? Can I invest in this? Yeah. But sometimes on the candidate level, do we know what the good looks like?
Most TR departments don't.
Yeah. So how can you target them? So how can you target this and understand that? So
of course you can talk about an ideal world where you have all the metrics that you need to have, where you know your time to hire, your cost of hire, your churn rate, and basically you can calculate what does it cost to make a hire, not only in external spend but also in internal salaries. Because again, if you're very heavy on the outreach, it can look like you don't spend a lot of money on actual attraction, but in reality, you're spending a lot of salary on doing it. But if you don't have those metrics, and that's actually what I see. I see a lot of departments get a bit of data fatigue, because when people like us are sitting on a podcast saying, "Oh, you should have these metrics," etc., they're like, "Holy shit, that's really far from where we are now." So whatever data you can have or experience you can run, it could be like really simple, saying that, okay, usually when we are recruiting for finance partners, we use LinkedIn's job board and we pay around 7,000 DK into that machine. For the next time, let's try to take those 7,000 and maybe put it into some other channels where we actually think that we can also reach these people, and let's see what kind of pipeline we will get. Maybe we will use 1,000 crowns less and say if we still reach our target and we still get the pipeline that we say we need to have, like X amount on screening, X amount of candidate on first interview, etc. If we're still able to build that and we make a successful hire and the hire doesn't churn within 3 months or 6 months or whatever, well, that we actually saved 1,000. Which accumulates to around 15% cost reductions. Okay. How can let's experience, see if we could scale that. So that's really low practical, where you don't need fancy dashboards and historical data, where you can just basically say, well, this is an experience that we're running.
This sounds easy. So why is it your experience that all companies are doing this today?
No, but to be fair, most TA departments are very busy. Like, unfortunately, most organizations have built their TA set up around, like, how many hires do we have, like, right now. So if, and it's typically if we go to, like, okay, we are on a busy level, we are on 120% right now, we have more hires than we are, or more open positions that we are actually able to handle with the staff that we have. Then we just tell them to run a little bit faster. But as soon as we go down to, like, okay, now we are only 80% busy, okay, we'll let one go. So we are to 100% again. So it's very difficult also being in talent attraction, because there is so much going up and down in regards to hiring and firing of talent attraction people itself. And I don't think that the C-suite will realize this itself, because it's been like this forever. So I think it's a job for the talent attraction people to actually push back and and come up with a plan for what should we do in slow periods, because that's when you have the time to actually look into this, look backwards. You don't have time when you're running from interview, from screening to screening. You don't have the time. I appreciate that, but there are slow periods. And you need to, like, in advance have a plan for what to do in those periods, and have and push that information upwards. So, for instance, if you're running this experience, push it upwards, so that they know that, okay, there's actually some work to be done here. That is not just the typical, let's post an ad, let's host jobs interview and sign a contract.
I'm curious, because let's say that you have a team where it's actually a pretty big company, so you might even have employer branding personnel, you have some talent attraction people, you even have talent acquisition. So you have enough human resources to split it up in the different parts of the funnel.
Yeah.
But you still want to go from good to great. So you're still looking into, okay, we still spend too much money on external recruiters. We still have too many parts of our organization where it's Russian roulette if we get enough and qualified enough candidates. And now they call Alexander. Come and be a consultant. Yeah. We are actually okay good. We have people, we have specialists, and we also have a very broad target group, because we both have tech people and finance people. We have entry level, we have C-level. Yeah. What would be the first thing you would look at to see, okay, how can we go from good to great in this team and company?
Yeah. I would analyze, like, the process of today and the funnel and how it's actually working. And again, it could be good, it could be working, but we need to look into the different parts of the current strategy to actually realize where the potential could be, because there's always room for improvement. So if we should just take a hypothetical example, many of the companies who are good at this and work great with this, there is still a lot of, they have typically nailed, like, the process from applicant to hire, but there's still a lot of potential to be realized within the attraction part. I actually see some companies doing really good what they would call employer branding campaigns. I would still call it a recruitment marketing activity that is just more brand orientated than performance orientated. Performance orientated means we want a job application today, and branding is more like, okay, we are putting in the bank long term. But it's still, in my terminology, it's still recruitment marketing activities in order to scale your brand long term and gain applications. And most companies that are working with this are working with it, like, with bursts. And a burst means that you're doing one big thing, one big campaign, a video or something like that, and then there's silence for another year where you make a new video and then there's silence again and a new video, where I believe that and that's of course because of budgets. But I think there's a misunderstanding. Like if you are a startup and you need new clients, your way to attract more clients is not making one big commercial a year and post it on LinkedIn. Like you're not there yet where it makes sense for you to do those things because you don't have the budget. You need to do fewer, less expensive activities throughout the year to like stay on the radar and have frequent awareness in your target group. And a lot of talent attraction could take that 1 million, 2 million that they're spending on a yearly employer branding campaign and chop it down over a year, and I believe get more out of it.
I'm actually curious, Pyrdol, just to get you on board on this. What do you see the companies that work with Develop Diverse? Where do you see they can go often from good to great?
I think the biggest problem as well is actually, as you're saying, Alexander, that many don't know what great looks like and don't necessarily have the data to analyze either, in terms of looking into and spending the time on looking into where is our bottleneck? Well, how does the funnel actually look? Are we getting enough qualified candidates in the first place? Is it the conversion rate? What is it actually? If we're not getting enough qualified candidates, we should look at where are we attracting people? Are we at the right conferences? Are we doing the right things and the right activities on here? Should we be more on Reddit for the engineers? Should we be more on where people are? Usually we're just posting and just praying that there will come something in. I still see that today, while I think we have talked about this for a long time, right? It should be a lot of the things you're saying, I think will resonate with the listeners here as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm thinking, what does it take? Is it really because we're making TAs so busy that they don't have the time, or employer branding is not getting enough budget? What is the real core here? How do we make that change?
But I believe it's time in most cases. And then you also need to realize, if you are like head of HR and you have like different teams, so you have someone doing salary, someone doing etc., and someone doing recruitment. I also see it in a lot of instances that when the recruiter is not busy recruiting, they are helping with the regular HR stuff instead of like taking the time to look into, okay, then how could we go from good to great, or just getting to know how we're actually performing today in our recruitment setup, and getting that nailed. So there is also some responsibility at the HR director. But again, if you don't sit around waiting for your HR director or your CEO or whatever to tell you to do this, push back. You need to do that.
Yeah. So we need to prioritize to actually do this. And I think also some of us who have not had a marketing background as yourself, Alexander, may think that, marketing is all about targeting. We've talked a little bit about as well, right? But it's really about how do we target the right people, but the right people can look very different with the right message as well, obviously, but can also look different than what we think. And that's where, of course, a lot of the work that I do, stereotyping and everything comes into play, because, of course, we still don't want to stereotype. We don't want to target too narrow either. We want to actually expand that. And that is what marketing is about. But I think sometimes that can be misunderstood as well. I don't know if you had that same experience.
Yeah, but I can also sum it up to like many of the things that we talked about today. We haven't talked that much about messaging, but that's, of course, also really important, also in regards to like who are you attracting. And you know more about that than me. But again, in the commercial space, you talk about like the STP model, which is basically segmentation first, like who is it that we actually want to target, and then you have targeting, like how do we target these people, and then you have the P, which is positioning. Like, how do we want to position ourselves? And within that, there is the message. What are we writing? What are we saying? What is our tone of voice? How do we stand out? How are we unique? And how do we have like some EVPs,
what is that?
Employer value propositions? Like, why should you work? Why should you work here? What can we offer you instead of Novo? And that needs to be. If it's not unique, then the way you're telling it needs to be unique. And you can again think about it from like there are plenty of categories within the commercial space, like supermarkets, where they basically sell the same things, everyone. But in their messaging, they make it sounds like that they are very different, and that's why you go to Menu or Netto instead of Rema 1000, because you have bought the idea that Netto is cheaper, even though they're probably just as cheap. So you can do the same thing in regards to, like, you may have the same benefits that of all your competitors also have, but then you need to find a way to how do you position yourself and actually communicate it so that the people you want to attract get the feeling like there's something really unique going on at your company.
So, on a final note, Alexander, you'll get the same question afterwards. If you were to give one advice for a talent attraction person or department out there who want to, just take the first step on increasing their efficiency or getting better results, what would that first step be?
To talk to your manager about it, because you need time to actually look into it. And you also need their buy-in from the beginning so that you don't spend a lot of time. Let's say you say, okay, I don't have time in my regular hours, so I do it at nights and weekends, and then I come and present something. If they haven't bought in the beginning, then it's difficult to sell it in at the end. So I would say that tell to your manager on your one-to-one or on your yearly, like what most HR department are very focused on how can the rest of the organization develop. But HR also need to talk with themselves about how can we develop and what do we want to do within the next few years. And I guess most have these conversations. So if you are within TA and you think about that you should do more about this, then talk to your manager about it, get it in your development plan. And in that way, you will actually have the time to look into it, because let's face it, you will not watch or listen to this podcast for 30 minutes and then you know how to do it. But hopefully it can be an inspiration for you to actually have a deeper dive into this space, because there are a lot of free resources online on how to actually do this.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
And you, Pete?
I think actually we've been really well around the advice and on how to do that. I think I'm really curious to see, because I think also, as you're all saying, you can listen to something for 30 minutes, but it's really hard to grasp. It can be abstract. How do you actually go and implement this? So I'm really curious with this podcast series, what is the equation? We need to do something about how many of us do talent attraction, because it's not necessarily working the best it could work. So what is this? If we just look at the recruitment marketing aspect, which is super important, we've established that over and over again, a lot of potential there for any company out there, small, big, agency, everything, as I hear it.
Yeah, I agree.
But what is if you had to really boil it down, the equation of this to get it right, recruitment marketing, very short.
To go back to what I've talked a little bit about earlier, I would say that you need to start with the segmentation, then look at the targeting, and then the positioning. And all those pluses together, if you have all those three elements, then it would equal magic.
Perfect.
If
that
you
sounds
nail
good.
it, if you nail it, and you can still do it, and then it will suck because you haven't nailed it yet. But that's the thing for everything. Everything is always development, and even people who have worked within the commercial space for years and work at the top exec session at Carlsberg, they change this all the times. So it's not like you make the targeting one time and the segmentation one time, positioning one time. It's always evolving in the way that you're learning, and the society is evolving, and the competitive landscape is evolving, and the target group is evolving. So it's not a static thing.
I love that as a final note. Any final thoughts from you, Nicklas? No. You're going to go implement this right away, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll do it today.
Wonderful. Me too. Yeah. Me too. They will be very busy at the office. They will get a lot of new stuff to
Hey guys, I have an idea.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
we are running out of time here. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's evident that we could talk for a really long time about this topic. It's something that I really think is interesting, that has a lot of potential. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.